My name is Marissa Caldwell, and on the night of my birthday, the candles were still smoking when the glass tipped toward me. The willow room hummed with jazz and clinking cutlery, but all I heard was ice sliding from my niece's mocktail as it arced across white linen toward my lap, and the ivory McQueen dress I told myself I deserved. Mint, lime, and sugar hit first cold, sweet, sticky, blooming across the bodice like a stain in slow motion. I pushed back my chair, but not fast enough. The liquid ran in narrow rivers, beating, pooling, mapping paths I couldn't control. Conversations at nearby tables stuttered, then paused. Someone laughed, then swallowed it. Tara didn't flinch. She held the empty glass like a mic. "There now, you look as cheap as you really are," she said, bright as an announcement, across the table. Rachel's smile was small and satisfied. My father's hand rose with a napkin and fell again. Useless. A server hovered, helpless. The chandelier buzzed faintly above our table. I remember thinking how absurd it was to care about a dress while I stood there drenched in a teenager's contempt. But it wasn't just fabric. It was the quiet promise I'd made to myself after years of keeping my head down if I worked hard enough. I could buy one beautiful thing without asking permission. That promise bled green. "Accident," Rachel said lazily. "Don't make a scene." The word scene hung like a rule I had signed as a child. Be pleasant, be grateful, be small. I felt the old contract in my bones, and something in me broke it. I picked up my napkin. I looked at Tara, and for the first time in my family, I decided not to look away. When I was a child in Springfield, I used to believe attention was a kind of currency. Rachel had it in abundance, minted fresh each time she won something, or even when she didn't. I remember standing at the community pool, dripping wet after managing my first clean dive, looking up at my parents with hope sparking in my chest. My mother glanced over her sunglasses, murmured, "That's nice, honey," and went back to rubbing lotion on Rachel's shoulders. Minutes later, Rachel jumped no dive, just a splash, and the applause was thunderous. I told myself I was imagining it, that maybe they hadn't really seen me. But even at 8, I knew the truth I was easy to overlook. Growing up meant learning that pattern by heart. Rachel was the natural talent, the charmed daughter, the one with potential worth investing in. My achievements were noticed only in the context of how much effort they must have required. When she switched majors 3 times at college, our parents admired her exploration. When I graduated with honors while working 30 hours a week, it was dismissed as me simply being disciplined. Praise for me was framed like a backhanded compliment, as if effort was less impressive than grace. I tried to swallow that truth and build anyway. While Rachel leaned on our parents' checkbook and connections, I balanced 2 jobs, loans, and the long crawl up a corporate ladder. Every paycheck I earned, every step forward, was mine. Yet family dinners always tilted toward her: the house Ethan bought, the vacation photos, the luxury schools for Tara. I became the polite listener, clapping at the right moments, a ghost at the table of my own family. Still, I carried a quiet belief that someday, something would shift. That one day, my parents might notice not just that I had survived, but that I had built a life out of grit alone. That fantasy was why I let myself buy the dress. It wasn't just silk and stitching. It was proof I could stand among them, maybe even be seen. Instead, Tara's glass baptized me back into the role I thought I'd outgrown: the family's silent target. The imbalance that had started decades earlier was still alive, now spilling into a new generation. And I understood, sitting there in sticky fabric, that the past I tried to outrun had simply been waiting at the table all along. After college, I didn't leave Springfield right away. Part of me wanted distance, but necessity tethered me. Rent, car payments, and student loans don't care about dreams. So I learned to stretch every dollar. I answered phones in a call center during the day and waited tables at night. My friends teased me for carrying a change of shoes in my backpack, but I knew if I didn't hustle, no one else would catch me when I fell. Meanwhile, Rachel never had to worry about catching herself. After drifting through art history, she married Ethan, a man who had already built a name in real estate. They bought a house with 5 bedrooms and filled it with imported furniture. My parents told the story with pride to anyone who would listen, as if her fortune was theirs by extension. When I signed the papers for my first small apartment downtown, the only response was, "Well, at least it's safe." But brick by brick, I climbed. Promotions came slowly, but they came. By 30, I had earned a spot as a senior financial consultant, managing portfolios worth more than I ever imagined. My clients trusted me because I didn't bluff or oversell. I told them the truth, even when it wasn't glamorous. That honesty became my reputation. Still, every family dinner felt like stepping onto a stage where I played the background character. Rachel's trips to Italy, Tara's private school drama, Ethan's business deals all front and center. My own successes landed like filler, polite nods before the spotlight swung back to them. Lydia, my best friend since college, once whispered as we left my parents' house, "You know, you work twice as hard for half the recognition." I laughed it off, but she wasn't wrong. That is why, when the regional manager promotion finally came through, I allowed myself something different. I clicked purchase on a dress that cost more than 3 months' rent in my first apartment. It wasn't logical, but it was mine. When I zipped it up in front of the mirror, I didn't just see fabric. I saw every night I'd chosen work over sleep, every bill I'd paid without calling home, every step forward on my own strength. It was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it became a test I didn't know I was about to face. I had stared at that dress online for weeks before I finally bought it. Cream-colored, cut with clean lines that whispered sophistication instead of shouting for attention. It was everything I thought I wasn't allowed to have. 3 separate times, I closed the browser, telling myself it was irresponsible, indulgent, ridiculous. And then, one night, after a long day of conference calls and spreadsheets, I clicked confirm order. The moment felt dangerous, like breaking a rule no one had spoken, but everyone enforced Marissa Caldwell doesn't get luxury. When it arrived, I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, the city lights spilling through my window. I slipped it on, smoothed the fabric, and turned slowly. It fit like a secret I'd been keeping from myself, elegant, understated, mine. I thought of Rachel's Gucci bags and Ethan's tailored suits, how they flaunted wealth like trophies. My dress wasn't about them. It was about me, claiming space I'd been told not to take. Lydia nearly dropped her coffee when she saw me wear it out for a trial dinner the week before. "Marissa," she said, dragging out my name, "that's not just a dress. That's armor. You better wear it with your head high." I laughed, but inside, I clung to her words. Armor. That was exactly what I needed. So when Rachel insisted on celebrating my birthday at the Willow Room, her choice, not mine, I decided not to resist. For once, I thought, maybe they'll see me as the woman I've become, not the girl they decided I was. I imagined walking in, their eyes catching the sheen of the fabric, realizing I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. It was naive, but I wanted it. The night of the dinner, as I handed my keys to the valet, I ran my fingers along the dress's seam. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged in a room of chandeliers and crystal glassware. I believed I had earned this moment. I believed my family might finally notice. But by the end of the night, all that hope would be drenched in sugar and lime, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Willow Room glittered with chandeliers and soft brass music as I followed the hostess to our table. I had timed my arrival exactly on the dot. Not late, not early. Still, Rachel checked her watch and sighed like I'd made everyone wait an hour. "Finally," she said, brushing a strand of perfectly highlighted hair over her shoulder. Ethan offered me a polite nod. Tara barely looked up from her phone. I forced a smile. "Sorry to inconvenience you on my birthday." The words tasted bitter the moment they left my mouth, but I refused to let her see it. The server appeared, cheerful, asking if we were celebrating anything special. My mother jumped in before I could answer. Yes. Marissa's birthday. 35 today. Her voice held the same politeness she reserved for distant acquaintances. I murmured a thank you, though the moment already felt stolen. Rachel ordered a bottle of wine that cost more than my rent. My father winced, but said nothing. When it was my turn, I asked only for sparkling water. Rachel smirked. Always the sensible one. Live a little, Marissa. Dinner dragged with stories about Rachel's latest home renovation and Tara's upcoming debate tournament. When I tried to share a little about my promotion, Rachel cut in smoothly. That's nice. Ethan just closed on a $12 million property. My father beamed. My news vanished like it had never been spoken. By the time the cake arrived, chocolate. Rachel's favorite, not mine. I told myself to endure just a little longer. The candles flickered. My mother urged, "Make a wish." I wished for strength, drew in one long breath, and blew them out. The table clapped dutifully. That was when Tara leaned back, stretching her arm across the table. Her glass tipped, clear liquid arcing through the air. Mint leaves tumbled like confetti before the shock of cold hit my chest. Gasps rose around us. Forks clattered. My cream dress darkened instantly, sugar sticking to silk. Tara smirked, voice sharp enough to slice the air. Now you look as cheap as you really are. The restaurant hushed. I stood there dripping, a spectacle for strangers and, worse, for my own family. And Rachel. She laughed. I stumbled toward the restroom, napkin clutched uselessly in my hand, the sticky sweetness clinging to my skin. Each step felt heavier, the stares of strangers pressing into my back. When the door swung closed behind me, the noise of the dining room muffled, leaving only the harsh brightness of the mirror. The damage was brutal. Mint leaves and lime pulp dotted the cream fabric like cruel confetti. Sugar had crystallized in uneven streaks, making the dress stiff in places. My armor, the one thing I thought would carry me through the night, was ruined. I pressed trembling fingers against the stain, as if I could will it to disappear. Tears burned before I allowed them to fall. Not just for the dress, though its cost screamed at me. It was for every dive in the pool that went unnoticed, every report card shrugged off, every promotion that felt like background noise compared to Rachel's whims. I thought I had outgrown that role, but looking in that mirror, mascara streaking down my cheeks, I saw the child who kept trying to earn applause that never came. The door creaked open, and I spun, hastily wiping my face. A young server, no more than mid-20s, stepped inside. Her name tag read Kendra. She didn't ask what happened, her eyes had already answered it. Quietly, she dampened a stack of paper towels and began blotting the fabric with practiced care. "Sugar's the worst," she murmured. "Even if the color lifts, the stickiness will stay." "It's ruined," I whispered. She met my eyes in the mirror. "Someone did this to you. That's not an accident, and you don't deserve it." The certainty in her voice landed like a strike of lightning. She didn't know me, didn't know the history, yet she named it clearly deliberate cruelty. My family hadn't said it, but a stranger had. I exhaled, shaky but sharper than before. The dress was gone. The illusion was gone. But in that sterile bathroom, something else took shape. A decision. I would not go back to that table as the family's quiet target. 2 nights later, I sat at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad covered in notes. For once, I wasn't preparing for a client meeting. I was preparing for my family. The ruined dress hung in my closet like evidence. Its stains hardened into a verdict. Every time I looked at it, I felt the sting of Tara's smirk and Rachel's laugh. I couldn't pretend anymore. I called my parents first. My voice was calm, steadier than I expected. "I'd like us to meet at your house this weekend. Everyone, Rachel, Ethan, Tara too." My mother hesitated, asked if everything was all right. "No," I answered simply. "But it could be, if we talk, on Saturday." I walked into the living room armed with my notes, not my dress. My parents perched together on the sofa, uneasy. Dylan and his wife, Emma, sat on the love seat, offering me small, encouraging smiles. Rachel stood near the fireplace, arms crossed. Tara slouched in an armchair, earbuds dangling like shields. "Thank you for coming," I began. "I need to talk about what happened at my birthday, and about more than that." Rachel cut in immediately. "Marissa, you're being dramatic. It was a spilled drink. Get over it." I steadied my breath. It wasn't an accident, and it wasn't just a drink. It was years of being diminished, dismissed, laughed at. I opened the folder in my lap. When I graduated with honors while working 2 jobs, it was, "That's nice." When Rachel switched majors 3 times and finally finished, it was celebrated. When I earned a promotion, it was brushed aside for Ethan's business deals. This isn't about envy. It's about respect. My father shifted, uneasy. My mother's eyes watered. Rachel rolled hers. But Dylan's voice broke the silence. "She's right. We've all seen it. We just let it happen because it was easier." The air in the room tightened. Rachel's face flushed red. "You're siding with her now," she snapped. I didn't flinch. For the first time, I wasn't pleading. I was stating terms. "I'm not asking for applause," I said. "I'm asking for boundaries." The silence after my words felt heavier than the walls around us. Rachel's jaw tightened, her eyes flashing with the same practiced superiority I had known since childhood. "Boundaries?" she scoffed. "What you really want is to control the family narrative, to make yourself the victim so everyone rushes to comfort you." Her voice was sharp, but I didn't rise to meet it. "No," I said evenly. "I want the same standard applied to me that's applied to you, nothing more." Tara finally tugged her earbuds out. For the first time that night, she looked directly at me, then quickly back down. Her face betrayed a flicker of something shame, maybe, or recognition. But before she could speak, Rachel's hand shot up like a warning. "Don't even start!" she hissed at her daughter. Dylan leaned forward. "Rachel, this isn't just about you. This has been going on for years. Marissa deserves to be heard." His wife Emma nodded, quietly adding, "The way Tara treated her wasn't just teenage mischief. It was cruel. And it was encouraged." Rachel's cheeks flushed crimson. She grabbed her purse and yanked Tara to her feet. "We don't have to sit here and be attacked. Come on." For a brief second, Tara hesitated. She glanced at me, her expression softer than I'd ever seen, as if she wanted to say something. But Rachel's sharp, "Now," Tara ended it. They stormed out, the front door slamming like a final verdict. In the stillness that followed, my father exhaled heavily. "I hope you're satisfied," he muttered. "I'm not," I admitted, voice steady. "But I'm not surprised either." My mother's hand twisted in her lap. "We never meant to hurt you, Marissa." "I believe that," I said gently. "But intent doesn't erase impact. I need change, not apologies you forget tomorrow." Dylan put his arm around Emma, nodding in agreement. "She's right. This family needs to do better." For the first time, I didn't feel like the girl begging to be seen. I felt like a woman finally standing on solid ground. Even as cracks split the wall I'd been leaning against all my life. A week later, I hosted a small gathering at my apartment, a do-over birthday, the kind I wanted all along. Lydia brought flowers. Dylan and Emma came with a bottle of wine, and for the first time in years, the air around me felt light. I wore a new cobalt blue dress, nothing designer, but it fit me like a declaration. No armor this time, just me. We laughed over pasta I'd cooked myself. No competition for attention, no subtle digs. When the doorbell rang halfway through dessert, I opened it to find my parents standing there. A bakery box in my mother's hands. "Lemon buttercream," she said softly. "Your favorite." It was the first time in years they had remembered something small but entirely mine. They joined us for coffee, awkward but trying. My father even asked about a project at work, listening longer than he ever had. It wasn't absolution, but it was a start, later, when everyone left. I walked to my closet. The ruined cream dress still hung there, its stains permanent. I had considered throwing it out, but I knew now it wasn't just fabric. It was a reminder of the night everything shifted when humiliation turned into clarity, when I stopped begging for recognition and started granting it to myself. I touched the fabric, then closed the door. The price of self-respect had been steep, but standing there in my quiet apartment, I knew it was the most valuable thing I had ever purchased.